The richest person in the room.
Tomorrow morning, your phone vibrates. A notification appears. Withdrawal successful, $50. You stare at the screen, confused. A few seconds later, another vibration. Withdrawal successful, $20. Then another $10, another $30. Before you've even finished your morning coffee, hundreds of dollars have quietly disappeared from your bank account. You freeze. You call your bank. You change every password securely. You want to know one thing: who's taking my money? Because money feels valuable. Now imagine something even stranger. What if I told you that something far more valuable has been quietly leaving your life every single day, and almost nobody notices? Not your money, not your possessions, not even your time, your attention. Money can be earned again. Businesses recover, markets recover, careers recover. But yesterday's attention is gone forever. No investment, no technology, no amount of wealth can buy back 1 hour of attention you gave away yesterday. And yet, most of us give it away without negotiating, without questioning, without even realizing a transaction has taken place. Because the modern world rarely asks for your attention directly. It earns it one moment at a time. One notification, one headline, one vibration, one recommendation, one autoplay video, one breaking news alert. Each one seems insignificant until you realize they're all asking for the exact same thing, just one more moment. Here's what surprised me most while researching this episode. The world's most valuable companies aren't simply selling products. They're competing for something that exists inside your mind, your attention. Some of the smartest engineers, psychologists, behavioral scientists, designers, and AI researchers on Earth wake up every morning asking a remarkably simple question: how do we earn one more minute, one more click, one more swipe, one more notification opened, one more video watched? Not because they dislike you, not because there's a conspiracy, because attention has become one of the most valuable economic resources in human history. Before anyone earns your money, they must first earn your attention. Before they influence your decisions, they influence what you notice. Before they shape your habits, they shape what repeatedly enters your mind. Because attention isn't just what you look at. Attention is what your brain begins building a future around. Think about that. The books you read, the conversations you remember, the fears you replay, the ideas you revisit, the people you admire, the stories you consume. Each one receives something priceless, your attention, and whatever consistently receives your attention slowly begins shaping your identity. This is what I call the invisible auction, an auction taking place every second of every day. The bidders are everywhere: social media, streaming platforms, news organizations, advertisers, email, gaming, artificial intelligence, even people. Everyone is placing bids, not for your wallet, for your awareness. Because whoever consistently captures your attention has the greatest opportunity to influence the person you become. That's a difficult thought because it forces us to ask a question most of us have never considered. Not, where did my time go? But who decided where my attention went? Because that answer may explain far more about your life than you ever imagined. Imagine walking into the most exclusive auction house in the world. Crystal chandeliers, polished marble floors, rows of wealthy bidders. The auctioneer steps onto the stage. He smiles. Then he says something unexpected. Ladies and gentlemen, today we will not be auctioning paintings, jewelry, or rare works of art. Today, we will be auctioning your attention. The room erupts with bidding. A social media company raises its paddle. A streaming service bids higher. A news organization joins the auction. A gaming company refuses to lose. Advertisers raise the stakes again. Artificial intelligence enters the bidding. The numbers climb. Millions, billions, hundreds of billions. Suddenly, the auctioneer lowers the hammer. Sold. Because this isn't an auction that happens once, it happens every second. Every time your phone vibrates, every time your watch lights up, every headline competing for your curiosity, every recommendation promising, you'll love this. Every autoplay video beginning before you've made a decision. Every red notification badge, every breaking news alert, every algorithm predicting what might keep you looking just a little longer. Here's what makes this different from every auction you've ever seen. You don't bring money, you are the one bringing value. Your attention is the asset, and the longer someone keeps it, the more valuable it becomes. This isn't speculation. It's one of the defining business models of the digital age. Some of the world's largest companies don't begin by selling products. They begin by earning attention, because attention creates opportunity. Opportunity creates influence. Influence creates behavior. And behavior often creates revenue. That's why the competition is so relentless. Not because your attention is cheap, because it's extraordinarily valuable. In economics, scarcity creates value. Gold is valuable because it's scarce. Time is valuable because it's limited. Attention combines both. You wake up every morning with a limited supply, and once it's spent, it never resets. Think about your own day. Before breakfast, how many things asked for your attention? A text message, an email, the weather, news, social media, a calendar reminder, a group chat, a notification from an app you forgot you installed. Most of them weren't urgent, but urgency wasn't the goal, attention was. Because every moment your mind turns towards something, it turns away from something else. That's the hidden cost. Psychologists call this selective attention. Your brain cannot deeply process everything at once. Choosing one thing always means not choosing something else. Every yes is also an invisible no. When you read one article, you're not reading another. When you scroll for 20 minutes, those 20 minutes cannot be invested anywhere else. When you interrupt a meaningful conversation to glance at your phone, your attention leaves the room before your body does. Attention is never neutral. It's always being allocated, and allocation determines outcomes. That's why I don't think attention is simply something you have. I think it's something you invest. Every moment of focused attention is a vote. The memories you'll create, the person you'll become. A gaming company refuses to lose. Advertisers raise the stakes again. Every moment of focused attention is a vote for the skills you'll develop, the relationships you'll strengthen, the memories you'll create, the person you'll become. Which means the most important question isn't, how do I stop getting distracted? The more important question is, who has been deciding where my attention gets invested? Because once you realize you're participating in an invisible auction, you begin asking a different question. Not, how do I get my attention back? But who has been quietly profiting from it all along? There's a story most people tell themselves, I just have terrible focus. I have no self-control. I'm addicted to my phone. If I were more disciplined, I'd finally get my attention under control. Maybe you've said those words yourself. I know I have. But after diving into the research, I realized something that completely changed the way I think about attention. Your brain isn't working against you. It's working exactly as it was designed to. Think about our ancestors for a moment. Imagine you're walking through a forest 10,000 years ago. You hear something rustle in the bushes. Do you ignore it? Of course not. Your attention shifts instantly. Because the cost of ignoring something important could have been your life. Your brain evolved to notice change. Movement, novelty, emotion, uncertainty. Not because it wanted to distract you, because it wanted to protect you. That same brain, the one that once kept your ancestors alive, is now carrying a smartphone, And suddenly, every vibration, every flashing icon, every breaking news alert, every unpredictable reward looks just enough like something important to capture the same ancient survival system. The problem isn't that your brain loves notifications. The problem is that your brain was built to investigate uncertainty. That's one reason unpredictable rewards are so powerful. Sometimes there's an important message, sometimes there isn't. Sometimes it's exciting, sometimes it's nothing at all. Your brain keeps checking because uncertainty itself is informative. Neuroscientists have spent decades studying dopamine. And one of the biggest misconceptions is that dopamine is simply the pleasure chemical. It isn't. Dopamine is deeply involved in learning, in motivation, in helping the brain recognize when something unexpected might be worth paying attention to. Your brain isn't chasing pleasure nearly as often as it's chasing possibility. That changes the story. You're not weak. You're curious. You're adaptive. You're human. Now imagine multiplying that process hundreds of times every day. Every app is competing to become the most interesting thing in your environment. Every platform is asking the same question. Can I convince your brain that I matter right now? Some succeed by creating urgency. Some use novelty. Some rely on social connection. Others use surprise. Different strategies, the same destination, your attention. You don't consciously hear every conversation in a crowded restaurant. You don't notice every passing car. You don't remember every face in the grocery store. Your brain filters constantly, not because it's limiting you. Not everything that exists becomes part of your experience. Only what survives the filter. And here's where this becomes extraordinary. If attention determines what enters your reality filter, then attention quietly determines the reality you experience. The books you notice, the conversations you remember, the opportunities you recognize, the fears you reinforce, the ideas that become familiar, the people who influence you. Your future isn't built from everything happening around you. It's built from the tiny fraction your attention repeatedly allows inside. Think about that. Two people can walk through the exact same city on the exact same day and leave believing they experience two completely different worlds. One notices beauty, another notices danger. One sees opportunity, another sees obstacles. The city didn't change, their attention did. And wherever attention goes, memory follows, habits follow, beliefs follow, identity follows. This isn't just psychology anymore, it's architecture. The architecture of a life, which means the real question isn't, why do I get distracted? The real question is, what has my attention been quietly building while I wasn't paying attention? The life you never noticed you were spending. There's something about attention that makes it different from almost every other resource you own. You notice when you lose money. You notice when you lose your keys. You notice when you lose your job. But attention is usually lost so quietly. You don't realize it's gone until much later. Not because someone stole it, because life happened, one interruption at a time. One notification, one unnecessary meeting, one quick glance at your phone, one video that turned into 10, one conversation where your body stayed, but your attention left. None of those moments feel important. That's what makes them dangerous. Imagine trying to empty a lake using a single cup. Impossible. Now imagine doing it, one cup every day for years. Eventually, the shoreline changes. That's how attention works. Very few lives are changed by one enormous distraction. They're changed by thousands of tiny ones. This is what I call attention debt. Not because you borrowed time, because every moment of fragmented attention quietly creates a debt your future self eventually has to pay. Sometimes the payment is obvious, a project that never gets finished, a skill that never develops, a book that stays half read, a business idea that never becomes reality. But sometimes the debt is deeply personal. a child repeating a story because they realized you weren't really listening, a friend saying, "Are you even here?" A parent growing older while your eyes remain on a screen. The most painful costs of distraction rarely appear on a calendar. They appear as moments that never happen again. One of the most important findings in the research wasn't about phones. It was about unfinished attention. Psychologists have found that when we switch from one task to another, part of our attention often stays behind. They call this attention residue. Even after your body moves on, your mind may still be carrying pieces of what came before. Think about how often that happens. You're answering an email while thinking about yesterday's meeting. You're eating dinner while mentally replaying tomorrow's presentation. You're talking with someone you love while a notification quietly waits in the background, asking for just a little more of you. Eventually, it becomes difficult to remember what complete presence even feels like. Maybe that's why so many people describe themselves as exhausted, even when they haven't been physically active. Because fragmented attention is mentally expensive. Every switch has a cost. Every interruption asks your brain to start over. Every restart consumes energy that could have been used to build something meaningful. And here's the tragedy. Most people believe the cost is measured in minutes. It isn't. It's measured in mastery, relationships, memories, depth. Because extraordinary lives are rarely built by extraordinary moments. They're built by ordinary moments, receiving extraordinary attention. Think about the people who changed history. Scientists, artists, athletes, writers, inventors, teachers, leaders. Their advantage wasn't simply intelligence. It was sustained attention, the ability to stay with one meaningful problem long enough to understand it deeply. Deep work isn't just a productivity technique. It's an act of respect. Respect for the work. Respect for the people you're with. Respect for the life you're trying to build. Now imagine something remarkable. Imagine if every time you reached for your phone, you saw the price instead of the notification. Not in dollars, but in possibility. 10 minutes of focused reading, a meaningful conversation, a new idea, a memory with your family, progress toward a dream. Would you still make the same decision? Maybe. Sometimes the answer is yes. Technology isn't the enemy. Connection matters, rest matters, entertainment matters. Every moment you invest attention, you are quietly casting a vote. A vote for the habits you'll strengthen, the relationships you'll deepen, the skills you'll master, the memories you'll keep, and ultimately, the person you'll become. So perhaps the real cost of distraction isn't that it steals your time. It's that it quietly redirects your future, one unnoticed moment at a time. Imagine that every morning, someone quietly places a briefcase on your front porch. Inside is your entire attention budget for the day. Not tomorrow's, not next week's, just today's. It's limited. You can't earn more of it. You can't borrow from tomorrow. And at midnight, whatever wasn't invested wisely disappears forever. Now imagine knowing that every choice you make isn't simply spending attention, it's investing it into a conversation, into a skill, into a relationship, into a habit, into an idea, into a future version of yourself. Because attention behaves remarkably like compound interest. One day of focused attention doesn't change your life. Neither does one workout, one chapter, one difficult conversation, one afternoon of deep work. But repeated, day after day, month after month, year after year, attention quietly compounds. Until one day, people call it talent, or wisdom, or mastery, or success. They see the outcome. They rarely see the investment. This is what I call the attention portfolio. Every single day, whether you realize it or not, you're building one. Some portfolios are filled with outrage, some with endless distraction, some with comparison, some with fear. Some with learning, some with curiosity, some with meaningful relationships, some with purpose. None of them appear overnight. They're built one investment at a time. The remarkable thing is, your future self will inherit whatever portfolio you build today. That's why I no longer think the question is, how do I protect my attention? Protection is defensive. There's a better question. What deserves to receive my attention? That question changes everything. Because the moment you begin choosing intentionally, you stop living reactively. You become the architect instead of the audience. Technology doesn't disappear. Notifications don't disappear. Algorithms don't disappear. Neither should they. Technology has connected families across oceans, helped students learn, given creators a voice, allowed ideas to travel the world in seconds. Artificial intelligence is already helping people solve problems that once took days. The goal was never to escape technology. The goal is to make sure technology serves your intentions instead of replacing them, because the greatest technology you'll ever operate is still your own mind, and your attention is its steering wheel. Where you direct it, your life gradually follows. Maybe that's why the most extraordinary people you've ever admired weren't simply better thinkers. They became extraordinary guardians of what they allowed to occupy their minds. And perhaps that's the quiet difference between living by default and living by design. Tomorrow morning, before you unlock your phone, before you answer an email, before the world begins placing bids, pause. Ask yourself one question. What deserves my attention today? Then make your first investment wisely. Because every moment of attention is a vote for the habits you'll reinforce, the relationships you'll deepen, the memories you'll create, the person you'll become. And one day, when someone asks how you built the life you're living, the answer probably won't be one extraordinary decision. It will be thousands of ordinary moments where you quietly chose what deserved your attention. We've spent this episode exploring where your attention goes. Even when people know what deserves their attention, many still don't act. They wait, they postpone, they tell themselves, tomorrow. And those tomorrows have a way of becoming years. So our next question isn't about attention, it's about action. Why do intelligent people delay the decisions that could change their lives? Why do we postpone difficult conversations, creative dreams, career changes, acts of courage, even when we know exactly what we should do? The answer has everything to do with how the mind manages uncertainty. That's where our journey continues. Episode 3, Decision Debt. Because the most expensive decisions in life are often the ones we never make.